Hi guys, UK Guns here, and I'm down at Bluefield Sports today with Callum from English Shooting and Gunroom TV. So big shout out to all of those for letting me come down today, and thank you Callum as well for letting me come down and have a chat with you.
Thanks for coming down and joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it. So we're going to do a bit of a Q&A session today with Callum. I've got some questions. Some of these questions are things that I'd like to know because Callum's quite an experienced shooter, and some of these questions are what you guys have been asking quite regularly that come up on the channel. So I thought I'd put them to Callum and get his input on them as well. So we'll get straight into it.
Sure.
What do you think are some of the barriers for people getting into shooting sports in the UK?
So some of the barriers, I think a lot of people will sort of over-exaggerate the processes. So they will get a little bit caught up in, oh, I've got to go and fill out an application, and now for some counties you've got to get the GP form filled in, and they just feel that it's going to be such an arduous process, and they're going to, sort of get caught up in it, or end up going down a maze and not being able to navigate it. And actually it's fairly straightforward. People just seem to make it more daunting than it actually is. I would say probably one of the biggest barriers is going to be actually exposure and learning about the sport.
That's it.
I was 20 when I found out that you could own shotguns and rifles here in the UK. I'd been an avid shooter from a very young age with air rifles. I knew farmers had shotguns, but I didn't know that there was a huge sporting scene. As soon as I found out, within a week, I was applying for my shotgun certificate, and I think it is mainly just showing what we can do. Even experienced shooters, that have been doing clay pigeon shooting for a number of years, they don't know about practical shooting or a whole plethora of other disciplines. So exposure, and then maybe over-egging the processes too much.
Yeah, I've got to say my experience has been pretty much the same. I've always been interested in shooting my whole life. Didn't really think it was something it was easy to get into, or that you could really get into. I was aware there were some sectors of shooting, but thought it's only like if you're an Olympian or you're a farmer. That was kind of my thoughts. And then I went shooting with a friend, went clay pigeon shooting one day, and thought, it's this easy, you can just get a shotgun, and that was my sort of route in. And then I found out about shooting clubs and things like that, and I think a lot of people just aren't aware that actually you can just go along to your local shooting club and you can join up, and you can get shooting almost straight away there using club guns and things like that. People just don't realise that.
And I think as well, maybe cost. I think people seem to think that shooting's only for really rich people, and it's really not. Yes, there are set costs. You have to get a safe. That's going to cost a minimum amount. Terminus certificate's 90 quid. But they think, they look on Gun Trader and they see these, £2,000 rifles. Well, Connor's started his first semi-automatic was a £20 Ruger 1022, and ammunition you can get stuff that's £5, 100. It's as expensive as you need to make it. So.
And it was the same when I went for my shotgun. I think my first shotgun, the cabinet and the cost of my license came to about £300 for all of it, which is a big chunk of money, but it was affordable. It was something you could make happen, and thought, wow, for that I'm now up and running. I can go and take my own gun out and do my own clay shoots and stuff. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. Do you think more could be done to promote shooting sports and generate interest in the sport?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a big factor in starting English Shooting, for creating Gunroom TV, is just putting more media out there. I know a lot of companies still like the paper media, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's very much on the decline, and I think it's only in recent couple of years that really shooting companies and organisations are beginning to maximise social media. So when I first started, I could go and, I say it all the time, I could go and watch how to put a lipstick on in 100 different ways on YouTube, but there was no one taking you through the process of filling out an application form. So I think explaining stuff online, so talking about the processes, talking about the ins and outs, but also just putting videos of people shooting. Certainly for practical, which I'm very passionate about, not a lot of people know about it. So just putting videos out there, and the amount of comments and messages that I'll get, which is, was that in the UK? Like, surely you've flown over to America to do that. And you go, no, this is in the UK. And once they've seen that you can do it, they want to do it, they get into it, and then they progress.
And that's the same reason why I started UK Guns, was to just to get it out there, really. I was shocked when I first got into shooting how easy it was, and how accessible it is to anyone. To get into. So I wanted to start a channel to try and promote more people to get into it as well. So Do you think that shooting organisations in the UK do enough to protect and promote the sport?
There's definitely a lot that goes on in terms of promoting and protecting, but throughout my sort of shooting career, I've always said that they could be doing more. Certainly, again, a lot more with social media. I know that organisations like the NRA, they have a big presence on Facebook. They have a lot of membership, but I'm not seeing a lot of sort of outward promotion of it. So
sort of promotion within the sport,
yes,
which people already know about it.
Yeah, so for the members, I think they're doing a lot better job now of engaging with the members, informing the members. But in terms of reaching out to new shooters, be that through the advertising of guest days, or even just advertising of the facilities that are available. I mean, Bisley is an incredible place. It's got loads of ranges, loads of facilities. There's lots you can do there. And even as someone, very early on in my shooting career, I was still completely blanked about what you could actually do there, what the processes were. In terms of protection, again, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and personally, I think that's what causes a lot of friction with the members, because they don't necessarily see what's going on, they don't hear what's going on, and I think as a community, and these organisations could be a lot more vocal and a lot more pressing in terms of moving the sport forward, rather than having closed door meetings which tend to be more on the defensive.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be more unification as well. I think in shooting in general, just because you only do clay pigeon shooting doesn't mean you shouldn't write to your local MP or contact your local organisation, because practical shooting is under threat or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's that today, it could be clay pigeon shooting tomorrow. So it's one of those things where I think we all need to we're under one sport and all work together coherently.
My ethos has always been, if you're pulling a trigger, doesn't matter what the trigger is, what gun it's on, what you're pulling the trigger at, as long as it's lawful, then we are all under the same umbrella. And in the last year or two, actually one of the greatest sort of attacks has actually come from game shooting or rough shooting, which we all are very blasé about. We all say, well, that's the last one that will go, they're perfectly safe, and actually they've come under the biggest attack. And I've seen a lot of unification of the sport shooters trying to protect the rough shooting and the hunting, where they may not have an interest in it. And I think having that reciprocated with practical, because people can get the wrong idea very, very quickly about it. They think it's some sort of military tactical training, which it's so different to anything like that. So I think we can defend each other, we can explain each other, and I think actually from shooters that aren't necessarily into that sport, if they're able to defend it, then anyone can. I've got a little bit of experience in game shooting, a little bit of experience in hunting. I don't fully understand every aspect, but I understand enough to be able to defend it, and I think that's really what we need to do as a community.
Definitely. And these shooting might get people into other types of sports, like the first thing I did was clay pigeon shooting, which I still enjoy doing now.
Yep.
But certainly target shooting and rifle shooting is more my passion now. But that's how it started for me, and then it fed into that. So it's important to protect those other sports, because that can bring new shooters into your own sport as well.
Absolutely.
Do you think that shooting sports in the UK has a bad stigma attached to it?
I think anything firearms related has a bad stigma attached to it in any aspect, and I think certainly in the UK, where we're such a small minority of people that take part in this sport, so the majority of people have very little exposure to firearms, and then therefore their exposure is going to be limited to TV, news, film, and 99% of the time, 99% of the time that you see guns on TV or film, they're usually being used against somebody else, or they're reporting on a gun being used against somebody else, and I think really it's disproportionate.
It comes back to that exposure again, isn't it? About getting the right exposure, showing how safe and enjoyable shooting sports in the UK can be. Doesn't have to always be sort of negative stuff. And I think as well, we've discussed as well before about you know, there is this level of secrecy around shooting in the UK,
Yeah.
and some of that's for good reason because of security concerns and all those kinds of things, not publicising certain stuff, and that's fine. But then it does kind of feed into this narrative of shooters being sort of shady and secretive and a bit weird. So it's getting that balance between promoting the sport and showing it off, but you know, maintaining security as well. What advice would you give for people interested in getting involved in shooting sports in the UK?
Join a club.
Yeah.
It's the number one.
That's the first thing, yeah.
You know, people again, you know, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. There's all these different processes. The first thing you should be doing is finding a local club. Using resources like the NRA. So the NRA lists every single affiliated club. So you can go and have a search through there. The UK PSA do the same. The NSRA do the same. The CPSA do the same. So you go and find, you know, depending on what discipline you want to go and do, find the national governing body for it. Usually on their website there'll be details about clubs, or drop them an email. I know some clubs, again, sort of being dragged kicking and screaming into, you know, the current the current technology that we use. They might not be as quick to respond, they might not be as easy to get hold of. Just keep at it, and really.
And often these clubs are run by volunteers. They're people running in their own spare time. These aren't businesses. These are people who have come together for a sport they enjoy. So,
and that's it. They're spending their spare time doing it. It's, you know, very few ranges are commercially run here, so you have to have a bit of sympathy that it is somebody in their evening trying to respond. But keep sending emails, talk to national governing bodies, and get that club membership. It's certainly on a sport route. Once you're a full member of a club, then that is your ticket to getting an FAC.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I probably get the most on the channel is people saying, how do I get involved in shooting? And again, promotion, that lack of promotion, and you know, shooting clubs don't promote themselves locally, which I think they should, but they don't. And so often people can live minutes away from a shooting club and not know it's there. And so you know, you have to kind of reach out and find them. But I was really surprised when I joined my first club. I expected it might be a bit of I'm an outsider, what's this? But actually I was really welcomed. Obviously I can't speak for all clubs, but I think it's probably the same in most. I was really welcomed as a new member. You know, the wealth of knowledge, and people in the club who have been shooting for decades, and the knowledge and experience you can get. It's like free tuition sometimes. I would go along on a club night and people come out on the range and help me to perfect what I was doing, and you know, iron out any bad habits and those kinds of things.
It's also the best way to get a feel for all the different guns.
Yeah.
So when you're down at a club day, every club member is allowed to share their guns, Section 1 shotguns and long barrel pistols and revolvers aside. Every other gun can be shared. So if you're new into the sport, you don't know necessarily what you want to get into, what guns you want to buy, or what disciplines you want to focus on. Going down to a club that has a lot of members is going to give you a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of guns. And talking about, again, the clubs promoting themselves, I've noticed, you know, with Kentucky Firearms Club, which is my home office group club, you know, they're a very new club. They're very forward thinking, they're very accepting of social media and videos and promotion. I've done loads for them over the years, and they've seen tremendous growth because people know about them. They see them, they see what they get up to, and they know there's a club there to join. Whereas I've seen some of the older, more traditional clubs, their members have just been diminishing. And it tends to be these sort of older, more established clubs that have the rules about not filming, not taking photos, not talking about where the club is. And well, how is anyone ever going to find that? You know, through word of mouth potentially, but again, we're trying to attract new people into the sport, so we've got to be proactive about it.
Absolutely, I agree, and I think that on the local club level, that's where the biggest difference probably could be made. If local clubs are able to promote themselves, if each club just got in 1 or 2 extra members from promoting themselves locally across the country, that's a big influx of new shooters, which would be really, really great for the sport.